Welcome back to our channel. Today we will talk about an amazing Polish breed.
The spectacular Polish Tatra Sheepdog.
This encyclopedia covers the essential facts about the breed, but also the practical reality, true character, demands, and challenges. But the final decision belongs to you.
Imagine falling in love with a beautiful image from a mountain resort and deciding to bring home a white, fluffy teddy bear, the perfect guard dog and your children's best friend. You carry that adorable ball of fur into your suburban home without realizing that you have just invited a 130-pound, fiercely independent guardian under your roof, an animal that makes its own decisions and does not wait for your commands. If you make serious mistakes while raising him, then in his mind, he, not you, becomes head of security for the entire property. If he decides the family is moving chaotically through the house after dark, his instincts may tell him to physically block your path to the bathroom, keeping the flock together in one place so he can control the situation more easily.
People see this breed through the lens of its thick white coat and pleasant vacation memories, forgetting that they are dealing with a hardwired protection machine. But if you're looking for an ultimate protector, a dog that will stand its ground against a predator that would send many popular shepherd breeds running, you may be looking at the right breed. This is a living legend of the harsh, unforgiving Tatra Mountains of southern Poland.
That's right, Peter. But before anyone gives in to the charm, they need to understand that bringing this dog inside at night can mark the beginning of major problems. Problems we will get into very soon.
The cost of illusions.
Many people living in suburban developments, and unbelievably, even large apartment buildings, fall for the illusion that the Polish Tatra Sheepdog is the ideal guardian, calmly spending most of the day dozing on the patio. They see him during daylight hours and think they are looking at a slow-moving, laid-back dog drifting lazily from one patch of shade to another.
But this is a classic sleeper agent situation. This dog never truly sleeps the way a typical couch dog does. His nervous system is always running in the background, monitoring the faintest rustle, vibration through the ground, or change in scent carried through the air. This is not a dog you can program with a clicker and a handful of treats. We are talking about an animal developed to confront wolves and bears independently, one that does not need a human being to authorize combat mode.
In a moment, you will see what happens when this genetic machinery collides with the physics and anatomy of everyday life.
The Encyclopedic Baseline.
When we look at the powerful Polish Tatra Sheepdog, we need to start thinking in terms of pure physics and biology.
His coat is a masterpiece of natural engineering. It is almost Teflon-like. Rich in natural lanolin, the coat has a remarkable ability to clean itself. The dog can walk through thick, soupy mud, and once the coat dries, the entire crust simply falls away, leaving him looking almost perfectly white again. But this luxury comes at a price. During shedding season, that wool is literally everywhere, clogging vacuum filters and collecting in every corner of the house.
When this dog launches forward, it is like an explosion from a dead stop. The Tatra Sheepdog does not need a running start. From a state of apparent lethargy, he can erupt in a fraction of a second with enough force to yank a grown adult off balance before that person has even registered that the dog moved.
And on a walk, that same mass can turn into a concrete statue. If a Polish Tatra Sheepdog decides that a certain spot must be inspected, the average person becomes nothing more than a helpless attachment at the end of the leash. Trying to drag him away is usually a losing battle. He braces his joints in a way that makes it extremely difficult to move him through brute strength alone. His body was built to withstand the force of an attacking predator, so he barely notices a person pulling on the leash.
But the far bigger challenge is how this tank operates psychologically.
Physical and psychological profile.
When people see this mountain powerhouse, many assume he requires a firm hand.
That is one of the biggest mistakes you can make. This breed is a complete paradox, a massive tank with an unexpectedly sensitive mind. Force-based methods often cause the dog to shut down and refuse to cooperate at all. And do not count on buying traditional obedience with pieces of hot dog, Michael. This is a primitive livestock guardian, not a robot on a training field.
We often fall for the myth of the calm white bear when we see these dogs lying passively in crowded mountain resorts surrounded by tourists. They appear to be the picture of peace.
That is not peace. It is stress-induced paralysis and learned helplessness. An overloaded nervous system has simply surrendered. Under natural conditions, this white giant is first and foremost an independent, proud dog that manages his own territory.
But if you build a relationship based on genuine respect, you gain a partner with an extraordinary level of intelligence.
He operates like a silent detector. In total darkness, he can identify a threat in a split second and, without a single warning bark, launch a ruthless surprise attack that neutralizes the intruder before you even realize someone is standing behind you. But earning his respect is a difficult test, and we will confront it directly as we answer the most important questions prospective owners ask. Hard questions before choosing the breed.
The first issue that keeps prospective owners awake at night is how this mountain colossus reacts to other animals during walks in town.
This is where his pride and sense of superiority become obvious. A Tatra sheepdog will often completely ignore small, yapping toy dogs running in circles, treating them like harmless parts of the scenery. The situation changes dramatically when a similarly sized dog appears, especially a powerful dog such as a pit bull or mastiff. Then the immediate threat assessment system switches on. The Tatra sheepdog does not pick fights for entertainment, but if he decides that another dog has invaded his space, he may engage with full force and without any theatrical warning barks. Do you have the determination to manage the environment around you every single time you leave the house?
Another critical issue is how this white giant functions around the youngest members of the household.
There is a dangerous illusion of safety here. The Tatra sheepdog may protect his own family, including the children he lives with absolute commitment, treating them as part of his flock and therefore as individuals who need supervision. The problem begins when other children come over and the play becomes loud, chaotic, and physical. Screaming, running, and roughhousing may be interpreted as an attack on the children he considers his own. The dog will not stop to determine whether everyone is simply playing. He may step between them as a hard, uncompromising enforcer, and with a dog of this size, that intervention can end very badly for a child.
Many owners also wonder how they can tell whether such an independent dog respects their authority at all.
One way to observe this is the so-called narrow hallway test. Watch what the dog does when he's lying in a passageway and you need to walk through. A dog that respects the handler will lift his head, move his legs, or stand up to make room. A Polish Tatra sheepdog that believes he controls the family and the space may ignore you, stiffen his body, and force you to step over him or walk around him. It may seem like a small detail, but it sends an important message about the balance of control inside the home.
Does this dog have any place in high-density housing or a modern apartment building?
In most cases, no. Trying to force this breed into that environment can turn into acoustic warfare after dark. At night, the Tatra sheepdog activates his natural guarding program. Every elevator that stops, every footstep in the hallway, and every neighboring door that slams may be answered with a deep, booming bark that travels through the walls. Then there is the temperature problem. That heavy coat can make heated apartments deeply uncomfortable, leaving the dog constantly searching for the coldest tile in the hallway or near the balcony.
People are also surprised when this apparently slow, lazy giant suddenly lunges toward a cyclist or runner.
You need to understand that the Tatra sheepdog moves within what might be called a mobile security perimeter. He does not guard only the physical fence around a property. When he is on a leash, that protected territory may extend several yards around his handler. A fast-approaching runner or cyclist crosses that invisible line. To the dog, this can trigger a sudden forward drive meant to push the intruder away. Teaching reliable focus on the handler and an absolute disengagement response around moving targets takes enormous patience and hundreds of repetitions in urban conditions.
If this kind of analysis helps you understand what dogs are really like, without sugarcoating or breeder mythology, subscribe to the channel. Your comments also help other viewers make a final responsible decision, so share your thoughts below. Now let's go deeper into the mind of this white giant.
Surprises and misunderstandings.
So what happens to all that joyful play, Peter? An inexperienced owner brings home a small fluffy puppy, runs around the yard with him and throws toys. It feels as though this will last forever. The surprise comes sooner than expected.
The giant grows up and suddenly starts looking at every thrown ball or stick with complete contempt. Retrieving an object for no logical purpose seems absurd to him. He does not waste energy chasing a piece of rubber for no reason. He would rather sit down, scan the area, and look at the human throwing the toy as though that person has temporarily lost their mind. This is not spite, it is pure energy conservation, and for livestock guardian dogs, that efficiency was once essential to survival. They do not waste energy on unnecessary movement. From an early age, the Tatra Sheepdog is constantly calculating. He quickly learns that food-based training has limits. If something more important is happening around him, he may ignore even the best treat. Do not expect blind, robotic obedience.
The next issue can completely redefine how people think about safety inside the home. It concerns the way this dog interprets the structure of the family when he has no real job to perform.
Michael, there are cases in which the dog becomes so intensely focused on protecting the weakest member of the household, for example, a young child, that he lies across the child's doorway. When the father tries to enter the room in the morning to wake his son, he is met with a wall of growling. The dog physically blocks a family member because he has assumed total control over the family's security. It is an absurd and dangerous price to pay for inconsistency. That is exactly what can happen when this genetic machine is denied its natural purpose. The Polish Tatra Sheepdog was developed for continuous work across a vast area. When you confine such a work-driven guardian to a limited suburban lot, the instinct does not disappear. Instead, a dangerous shift may take place. The dog redirects his entire need for control toward the family, especially a small child.
The situation may look very different in a rural setting, where the dog has a real group of animals to protect. There, this unhealthy pattern of trying to control members of the household may never develop.
When the dog is responsible for dozens of sheep or goats across a large pasture, his attention is fully occupied by the genetic task he was built to perform. The human family moves much farther into the background. He no longer feels the need to track where the father is going or block access to the child's room because his mind is busy monitoring the territory around the livestock. In the country, he becomes a proud, autonomous working partner with a healthy emotional distance. And he could not care less what the family is doing in the living room after dark.
Another harsh reality awaits anyone who buys such a large, powerful dog and imagines they are getting the perfect partner for athletic challenges.
Many people assume that because of his size, the Tatra Sheepdog will happily go jogging with them or accompany them on long bicycle rides. Nothing could be further from the truth. He may gladly go on a long walk, but he is not a marathon runner and he was not designed for sustained running. Forcing him to run alongside a fast-moving bicycle is miserable for the dog. The Tatra Sheepdog is a short-distance athlete and a stationary guardian. He's happy to patrol calmly at his own pace, and even happier to return home afterward, back to his property and the people or animals he considers his responsibility. That is where he belongs.
And that brings us to another major misunderstanding, the way this dog shows affection. People often expect an openly demonstrative companion who constantly demands physical contact.
The truth is that the Tatra Sheepdog is not usually a classic cuddle dog. He may not spend all day demanding to be petted or sleeping on his owner's feet. You discover how much he likes you and how deeply attached he is when you come home after 8 hours at work. Then you see an extraordinary burst of joy, not only in his movements but especially in his eyes. Other members of the household may receive the same reaction when they return. Reward him with a treat after that greeting, and he may look like the happiest dog in the world. This is proud, controlled loyalty, not a relentless demand to be touched.
Finally, we should challenge the myth that caring for such a large white dog must be brutally expensive and complicated.
Many people imagine constant grooming appointments and highly specialized diets measured with pharmaceutical precision. The reality is surprisingly simple. Feeding a Tatra Sheepdog does not have to be complicated. A standard diet of dry dog food is common, sometimes combined with raw meat. And despite that massive white coat, the dog does not necessarily require regular professional grooming. About 15 minutes of brushing a week with the right tool can be enough for routine maintenance. The price of that simplicity is heavy shedding twice a year. During those periods, prepare for an actual hair apocalypse. Enormous quantities of undercoat come off the dog, enough to cover large sections of the yard.
All of these complicated traits, hardwired defensive mechanisms, and uncompromising instincts lead directly to the final question: who truly has enough strength and character to live responsibly with this mountain guardian? That brings us to our final verdict.
Summary.
All of these brutal realities come together into one final picture, and that picture makes it very clear who may find life with this mountain king deeply rewarding, and who may turn it into a nightmare for themselves and their neighbors. It is time for a cold, hard assessment.
If you own a suburban home with only a small yard, there is a strong chance this breed will disappoint you. The Polish Tatra Sheepdog is at his best in large open spaces. What is fascinating is that this powerful guardian, equipped with such an uncompromising protective instinct, can encounter thousands of hikers on mountain trails without a problem.
That apparent contradiction is explained by the breed's deep intelligence and autonomous judgment, qualities now valued by livestock owners across Europe and by ranchers in America.
On high mountain pastures, the Tatra Sheepdog is a professional on duty with a powerful mind of his own. He does not blindly seek conflict, and he does not attack a passerby simply because someone is near a fence or the edge of a trail. He often follows a clear, intelligent escalation pattern. First, he creates a living wall, placing his body between the potential intruder and the flock or home, clearly marking the boundary. If that does not work, he uses his powerful voice. In the overwhelming majority of cases, that is enough to stop anyone who enters the protected area, deliberately or accidentally.
Only when someone is reckless enough to ignore those warnings and enter the protected space does the Tatra Sheepdog's response become immediate and uncompromising.
But do not confuse this with mindless rage. A person who ignores the boundary may be treated as an intruder who must be physically controlled. The dog may knock that person down, inflict painful injuries on their arms and legs, and pin them with his body until the owner arrives.
The situation is completely different when the life of the flock is at stake and the attacker is a wolf.
Then there is no room for negotiation or restraint. If the predator crosses the final line and attacks a sheep, the Tatra Sheepdog becomes a ruthless, primitive fighter. Against the wolf, there is no mercy. It is a brutal struggle for survival, and the Polish guardian commits fully to stopping the threat by force.
And that is exactly why this king among Poland's native breeds deserves such respect. He is not a mindless aggressor. He is a majestic, stable protector with enormous courage. Give him space, clear rules, and a legitimate role, and you may gain a kind of partner that few breeds can offer. His loyalty to the family can be absolute, and his composure in critical moments can be remarkable.
If you have a large property far from close neighbors, if you are calm and consistent, and if you want an autonomous, loyal partner rather than a dog for military-style drills and tricks, life with this breed can become a fascinating and deeply rewarding experience. For the right person, the Polish Tatra Sheepdog can be one of the finest guardians of home and family.
If you value this kind of brutal honesty, subscribe so you do not miss our next breed analysis. You can also support us through Buy Me a Coffee. The link is in the video description. The final decision about whether you are ready to accept the responsibility that comes with this king of the Polish mountains will always be yours.